You want to see how we rigged an all-natural line on Half Dome? Check it out on this episode of How Not to Highline. I'm Ryan Jinks and welcome to my garage. Check out what we did on Half Dome. Want to see how we rigged it? Well, I guess that's why you're here. Max Silver and Preston Alden established this 200-foot variation on Half Dome last year. It's a line that's rigged all naturally, which is wrapping boulders rather than using bolts. For this 200-foot line, we used Double Feather Pro and about 500 feet of static rope to build our anchor. And congratulations to Garrison for getting an on-site full man, which means he walked both directions without falling once. And I almost got an on-site, but I fell in the last node. Then I started over and got the full man without falling. And this was really exciting for me because back in 2009, before I sent my first Highline, I saw a Patagonia postcard that had a guy walking on a Highline all the way up on Half Dome. Back then that Highline looked huge, and I think it was only about 130 feet. And that junk mail was my main inspiration to pursue highlining at the level I did. So getting a full man, the longest line up there, was an incredible experience. And before I show you guys how we rigged that, I just want to let you know that Slacklife BC Sky Pilot nylon webbing is going to have a drastic price reduction. So check it out and be sure to grab some. And remember, the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. And I also wanted to show you this Zurge outdoor ultralight ring that I just got in the mail. This is more of a thimble design that allows the rope to go around the webbing instead of rings going on and attaching a leash to the rings. Now it's not likely that two metal rings are going to fail, but this is a pretty nifty design and it's half the weight as my titanium ring setup. And Adam has the coolest highlining gear manufacturing video online. Check out the link in the description below. Now keep in mind, nobody pays me to promote their products. This is gear that I like, that I think you're gonna like. Now let's get on over to Half Dome, and what a better place to describe how to rig Half Dome than on Half Dome. Welcome to Half Dome. We're building a natural anchor with a 60-meter 8mm rope. We used the tail of it and wrapped it around the big diving board here twice, and I love my figure eights. And then we took the middle of it and just wrapped it around the thing that Mel is sitting on right now. And then we have this going to a butterfly knot to 4 cams. I have a 30-foot piece of 8mm static slung around a boulder. So I have 4 independent points, all of which would hold this Highline all by itself. And I'm going to take this 30-foot piece and build a 4-point sliding X just like we would with bolts. So now let's go over each part of that anchor so you really understand what we wrapped. So we crawled in the cave underneath the big rock and wrapped the rope around it 2 times. On all the sharp corners, or the areas where the rope would move the most, we padded very well. And with the middle of the rope, we went around another huge block. And with the tail, we tied a super figure 8, which gave us 2 bunny ears to clip to 2 sets of 2 cams. And because we had spare rope and we wanted a 4th independent point, we wrapped another boulder that was pretty far back. And we isolated each section of the rope with a figure 8, a BFK, or a figure 8 on a bite. They're all the same thing, it's just how much rope is in your hand. Then we took those 4 independent points and equalized them just like we do with bolts and backed it up with whoopee slings. Disclaimer, whoopee slings directly girth hitch to static ropes goes against industry standard. The general rule of thumb is rope on rope is bad. We chose to accept the risks associated with this in order to back up our connectors. But again, this is not industry standard and we do not recommend that you do it. And because our master point was not over the edge, our webbing was susceptible to abrasion, so we wrapped a large spiral around the main line. And to tension the line, we just used a line grip, a hangover, and me. And after all that, we had a bunch of webbing left over, so we gently walked it around a boulder and tied it with a snap bowline. Now let's show you what Scott Hong and Garrison Rowland came up with on the static side. Alright, so this is the static side of the Half Dome line we got. We wrapped this entire boulder, this corner of this boulder, the corner of that boulder over there, and the whole thing that Mel's sitting on right now. And it all comes to 4 independent points that we do the typical 4 sliding X with. But because we had all this extra rope, because we rigged this second, we ended up being able to put redundant ropes here and 2 independent lines there, and so everything's pretty much overkilled and padded pretty well. So we have our 4 main points, which are as strong as bolts, and they were all right in this range right here. They've extended out. All natural rigs, especially when using ropes, will extend, and you have to take that in consideration. We like where it ended up, so it's fine. I'm happy with the fact that we have this anchor over here. It helps equalize the fact that our anchor's too far to this side, and then puts too much pressure on this rock. Now this rock is stable and is not going to pull it off the cliff, it would just pull it that way. But it puts a lot of force into the ropes getting jammed in there, but we had enough padding that it was fine, and this point helps here. We technically had 5 main points to connect to, but we didn't want to try to equalize 5 points. It's much easier with 4 points. So we manually equalized 2 of them that were next to each other, and then put our opposing carabiners on those. So it was treated like 1 point, but it's super redundant that way. So we did our 4-point sliding X here, which the master point ended up being around right here, but after it all fully extended, it ended up here, which works better. That way this webbing is less prone to abrasion, even though we've padded it quite well. We use the opposing button knot soft shackle on sew and loop method for our static side. And we also use whoopee slings here so it doesn't shackle at the anchor if we happen to be wrong with what we were doing here. It's very redundant, so it's super safe. Now let's talk about the padding dilemma that often comes with rigging naturally. Your ropes are touching the rocks everywhere, but you have a finite amount of padding to use. So we like to focus our padding on sharp edges and anywhere the rope is going to be oscillating or moving, which would be closer to the anchor than further away. So just think strategically when you're padding a natural highline rig. And make sure when your friends are highlining that you're not too loud or distracting or moving around too much, because that could possibly make them fall. And he stayed on!
Fucking boss.
And just so you know, you're not supposed to throw stuff off Half Dome because of the climbers below. In fact, you shouldn't throw anything off cliffs ever. But those were very soft snowballs, so please don't troll me. And remember when you're highlining to leave no trace. That obviously includes taking out your trash, but it also includes taking out other trash. Like this glass Corona bottle that was shattered all over the place when we got there. We picked it up and hauled it out. And if you gotta go to the bathroom and can't bury it in a populated area, you might have to haul it out.
So I'm just doing farts and crafts over here. Just did maybe the most disgusting thing I've ever done. I taped up Ryan's poop, Garrison's poop, and my poop. Put it in this 2-liter bottle, taped it up. We're gonna pack it out. Fucking gross though, but awesome.
And in case you're wondering how to do that, you go in here and then cut this and stick it in here. With enough tape and enough grocery bags, you can layer that thing up to where you won't smell it. Now let's talk about logistics. If there are 5 people going, you don't need 5 hangovers. In fact, you don't need 5 jet boils or even 5 harnesses. Now to go even lighter weight, we could take less static rope next time, now that we know what to rig with. But there's a lot of ways to save weight on things that are just unnecessary. Another logistics note is that you need a permit to go up the Half Dome cables. Now we actually went up about 2 weeks before the cables went up, which means we went through kind of sketchy snow and had to prusik our way up the cables. But ideally you go when the cables are up and you get a permit for it. And if you get a permit to go up Half Dome, message me, because I'd love to go again. Rigging all natural lines requires a lot of compromising. Therefore, you shouldn't highline. Hey, thanks for watching, but don't be a dummy and go rig your first highline, especially on Half Dome, without going with somebody who knows what they're doing. But until then, check out these other videos and don't forget to subscribe.